want to go ahead and do a video series revolving around the head coaches and the teams that have fired their head coaches. And why not start with the Patriots, because this is a Patriots themed channel. Patriots went 4-12. 4-13. It's still weird to say 4-12, but 4-13 in 2024, the second consecutive year that they went 4-13, by the way, and fired head coach Jerod Mayo. Now, what went wrong for the Patriots to the point that they had to fire Jerod Mayo? Well, it's two things. One is a more immediate thing, and the second one is a more long-term thing. Starting with the more immediate thing, which is, and I don't specifically blame Jerod Mayo for this, because this had been in place for 5 years, and when it got put into play, it flopped immediately because, well, they didn't develop him, which is the succession plan. There was a plan in place since 2019 that Jerod Mayo would be developed into the eventual Patriots head coach once Bill Belichick was gone. But the problem was that they didn't build him up. You would think if your succession plan involves putting a guy in after your current coach resigns or leaves or retires or whatever, that you would build him up. But no, and it's not Jerod Mayo's fault. Heck, Jerod Mayo was a good linebackers coach. But for some reason, he never got promoted to defensive coordinator. And what makes it even more head-scratching is that Bill Belichick had plenty of opportunity to put Jerod Mayo as his defensive coordinator, but never did. In fact, he actually put his son, I think he wanted to put his son as defensive coordinator, which if that was the case, why not the Patriots just have Bill Belichick's son be the succession plan? But anyway, Jerod Mayo, he never got to be a defensive coordinator, was never really in a major role in developing the team, and yet they're going to put him in the role of head coach once Belichick leaves the program. Sure enough, it doesn't work well. And look, I understand, because it was pointed out to me that Dan Campbell had never been a coordinator before. Look how he's done. Great. Dan Campbell's probably the second best coach in the NFL right now, with the obvious number one being Andy Reid. That's the exception, not the rule. More often, you'll get Jerod Mayo or Freddie Kitchens or David Culley when you hire somebody as a head coach who had never been an offensive or defensive coordinator. And you could see it when Jerod Mayo would make the most obvious dumb decisions where you knew, not in hindsight that it was a dumb decision, but immediately that it was a dumb decision that Jerod Mayo made. Had he had an increased responsibility, he would probably known that was not a good decision, like the decision to kick a 68-yard field goal down by 1 against the Colts. Or the decision to put Drake May in late in the game on Thursday Night Football, but only have him do one. Excuse me. Only do one drive. The lone good thing that came out of this year with Jerod Mayo was the development of Drake May, but how much credit does Jerod Mayo get for that, we don't know, other than the fact that Jerod Mayo gave him a chance. So that's the more immediate thing that happened to cause the Patriots not to do well in 2024, was Jerod Mayo not really being built and ready for the position. Maybe if he gets a coordinatorship somewhere for like a period of 3 years and then he gets a second chance as a head coach, maybe then he succeeds. And also the fact, as the season went on, the Patriots got worse with the exception of the Bills game, which that was a game where the Bills completely rested their starters because they had the second seed and needed to play against I forget who, but they had to play a game the following week for the playoffs. Why have their starters out in an ultimately meaningless regular season game when they can't leapfrog the Chiefs for the number 1 seed? That's the more immediate thing, was the Gerard Mayo situation. But the more long-term situation goes long before 2024. It goes, in some cases, way back, and it's Bill Belichick as general manager. I want to make that clear distinction. Belichick as a head coach is the greatest head coach of all time in the NFL. Maybe you could say it was Jimmy Johnson, had he actually been given a fair chance by Jerry Jones. Maybe you can say Bill Cowher. Maybe you can say Chuck Noll. But Belichick has the greatest case because of the 6 Super Bowls. Look at what he did with the 199th pick in the 2000 draft. Look at what he did that one year Brady was hurt, bringing in Matt Castle, and had we won one more game, we would have been in the playoffs. It was just, the AFC was so stacked that year. And look at the fact that even without Brady, a lot of people forget that even after Brady retired, Belichick still had one more playoff season in 2021, the same year that Mac Jones was brought in. And I'm going to get back to Mac Jones in just a second. And it's rarely a very good idea for your head coach to also be your GM. It's very rare that having the role of GM plus another role, I'm looking at you, Jerry Jones, is a good idea. Belichick, the last good receiver Belichick drafted was Julian Edelman, and that was in 2010. Gronkowski did very well. A certain guy at tight end, who we're not going to mention, did well up until he got caught with the law. But you can't name one good Patriots player that Belichick drafted that's still on the roster today. Belichick was responsible for drafting. Belichick was responsible for free agency as the GM, and he whiffed in both. And once Tom Brady was gone, that's when we lost our ability to mask Belichick's deficiencies as GM. 2020, maybe you can give that a pass because that was the COVID year. A lot of our best players opted out of the season. That was the Cam Newton year, which I still believe we shouldn't have run off Cam Newton after 1 year. I think you should have had a more fair shot to compete against Mac Jones than what he did, because with what he had in 2020, he did pretty decent. Not the best of all time, and not as good as his peak with Carolina, but he still did pretty well. But he leaves, you bring in Mac Jones, and in his rookie year, we still had some pieces together from when Brady was there. A good defense, good receivers around Mac Jones. We made it to the playoffs. Mac Jones even made the Pro Bowl. But then Josh McDaniel leaves. You made the stupid decision to put Matt Patricia as your offensive coordinator. Why would you do that when he's never coached so much as coached that side of the ball? You give him no weapons at receiver, no weapons at tight end, no help on the offensive line. The defense still did good, but that's always been Belichick's forte, is defense. 2022, we're right on the brink, but fall. 2023 happens, we think, all we need is an offensive coordinator, which thankfully Belichick actually hired somebody who knows that side of the ball, in Bill Bryan. But that's when everything showed of how bad Belichick was as a GM. No receiver help for Mac Jones, to the point where Mac Jones had to be benched. the offense completely sucked. The defense was the lone bright spot, but even they had games where they were giving up 30 points a game. Belichick as GM is probably the thing that's hurting the Patriots most in 2024. Gerard Mayo being a head coach that was underdeveloped didn't help, but Belichick as GM, and again, Belichick, probably the greatest NFL coach of all time, but as a GM, it wasn't a good idea to keep him long term, because if you're the on-field head coach, but you're also the GM, those responsibilities are going to conflict with each other. You need somebody to be the GM. That way the head coach doesn't have to worry so much about running basically the front office. And I think that's ultimately what happened to Belichick, is that his responsibilities as GM and responsibilities as head coach got tangled together, and he had to favor more his head coach responsibilities than his GM responsibilities, basically putting his GM responsibilities on autopilot. And that's what's hurting the Patriots the most. And that's the reason why the Patriots are on their second consecutive year at 4-13, and why the Patriots will be drafting so low, and why the Patriots are looking for another head coach. That's it for the Patriots rant. Stay tuned. There's 5 others who I have to do a what went wrong for them video. And the next one, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the New Orleans Saints.